The GPS tracker under Julia's SUV weighs exactly 2.3 ounces. I know because I read the specifications 3 times before ordering it, the same way I read load calculations before approving a beam. Details matter when you're building something meant to last, or when you're preparing to tear something down. I'm sitting in my truck outside Dan's cabin, engine off, phone recording everything through that living room window. Julia's laugh carries across the night air, the same laugh she used to save for our Saturday mornings when the kids were still asleep and we'd make coffee in our pajamas. Now she's laughing while Dan unbuttons her blouse, her wedding ring catching the lamplight as she reaches for him. Some men would kick down the door. Some men would scream. I document. I calculate. I plan. The thing about being an engineer is that you learn to see failure before it happens. Hairline cracks in concrete, metal fatigue in steel beams, the slow corrosion that brings down bridges. I should have seen this coming 4 months ago when Julia started taking those extra work trips to Minneapolis. Should have noticed that Dan's late nights at the office perfectly aligned with her travel schedule. But I trusted. That was my miscalculation. I met Julia 14 years ago at a company picnic where she was complaining about her boring marketing job, and I was the guy who designed the parking garage everyone ignored. She said I had quiet confidence, which I later learned was code for doesn't talk much at parties. We married 2 years later in a ceremony where Dan gave the best man's speech about how I was the steadiest guy he knew, steady enough to love Julia through her restless phases. Glen Oak, Illinois. Population 47,000. The kind of place where your accountant coaches Little League with your mechanic, where the grocery store clerk knows you buy the same cereal every Tuesday. It's a good place to raise kids, Julia used to say. A terrible place to feel invisible. That's what she started calling our life last year. Invisible. Our modest colonial on Maple Street with its sensible mortgage and efficient heating system. My predictable schedule: coffee at 6:15, work by 7:30, home by 5:45 for dinner. The way I'd kiss her forehead every morning and ask about her day every evening, even when her answers grew shorter and her smiles more forced. "You're a good man, Marcus," she told me 6 months ago while washing dishes, her voice carrying that peculiar sadness of someone delivering a diagnosis. "Sometimes I think you're too good." I should have asked what she meant. Should have noticed how she'd stopped wearing her wedding ring to bed, claiming it scratched her skin. Should have questioned why her company suddenly needed so much face-to-face consultation in Minneapolis when they'd done everything by video call for years. Instead, 4 months ago, I started paying attention. Really paying attention, with the methodical focus that made me successful at structural engineering. The way Julia would shower immediately after coming home from client dinners. The way she'd delete text messages while I was in the room. The way she'd started working out more frequently, buying new underwear, caring about her appearance in ways she hadn't since Emma was born. 2 months ago, I installed the GPS tracker. The first few pings came back normal, Minneapolis, just like she said. Then I started seeing the pattern. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening, her SUV would show the same coordinates, 2 hours outside Minneapolis, in a location that led me to county records showing Dan's hunting cabin purchase 8 months ago. A cabin he'd never mentioned, despite being my best friend since college, my best man, the guy who knew Julia got cranky when she didn't eat breakfast, and that I sometimes talked in my sleep about structural calculations. Tonight's ping showed those same coordinates for the 34th time. Julia's SUV parked beside Dan's truck while she told me over the phone that her client dinner was running late, and she probably wouldn't be able to call tomorrow morning. "Don't wait up," she said, and I could hear restaurant noise in the background. Only now I know it was Dan's television, and the clink of silverware was him opening wine while my wife of 14 years told me not to wait up for her. I'm still sitting in my truck, watching them through that window. Julia's fully undressed now, and Dan's hands are in her hair the way mine used to be on Sunday mornings. They look comfortable together, practiced. This isn't their first time here. It's their 68th time if my tracking data is accurate. My phone has 43 minutes of high-definition footage, enough to document their betrayal with the thoroughness Julia always mocked me for. "Do you have to analyze everything to death?" she'd ask when I'd research restaurants before making dinner reservations, or when I'd read product reviews for 20 minutes before buying dish soap. "Yes, Julia, I do have to analyze everything, because analysis prevents failure, and right now, failure isn't an option." I start the truck and drive home through empty streets, past the elementary school where our kids learn their multiplication tables, past the grocery store where Julia and I used to shop together on Saturday mornings, past all the ordinary places that make up an ordinary life I thought we were building together. The house is dark when I pull into our driveway. 10-year-old Liam's nightlight glows from his bedroom window, and 12-year-old Emma's gymnastics medal catches the streetlight on her sill. They're sleeping peacefully while their mother betrays everything we built. Inside, I upload the footage to a secure folder, then sit at our kitchen table with a legal pad. Engineers don't just identify structural failures, we design solutions. And Julia was wrong about one thing. Good men don't always finish last. Sometimes they finish everything. 8 weeks of living a lie feels exactly like what I imagine structural fatigue must feel for a building, imperceptible stress accumulating until something catastrophic snaps. Every morning I make coffee for a woman who's destroying our marriage. Every evening I help our kids with homework while their mother texts her lover from the couch beside me. "How was your day?" I ask Julia each night at dinner, the same question I've asked for 14 years. She tells me about difficult clients and demanding deadlines, about the Minneapolis project requiring so much personal attention. She's gotten better at lying, adding specific details about hotels and meeting rooms and conference calls. If I didn't have 2 months of GPS data and 43 minutes of video showing her half-naked in Dan's arms, I might even believe her. "Dad, you're burning the chicken," Emma says, and I realize I've been standing at the stove, spatula in hand, watching my wife lie to our children about her evening phone call to review tomorrow's presentation. The burned chicken smells like failure, like the acrid smoke of something organic turning to ash. "Sorry, kiddo." I flip the breast meat, now charred black on one side. "Guess I was thinking about work." Julia glances up from her phone. "Everything okay with the Harrison Overpass project?" The Harrison Overpass project finished 3 months ago. She doesn't remember because she wasn't listening when I told her about the completion ceremony, just like she wasn't listening when I mentioned my concern about stress fractures in the support beams, or when I explained how we'd reinforced the foundation with additional steel. "Fine," I tell her. "Just some calculations I need to double-check." That night, after Julia falls asleep, I sit in my basement office reviewing the evidence I've collected. The GPS tracking data shows a precise pattern. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening for 4 months, her SUV has pinged at Dan's cabin. 34 documented visits, each lasting between 4 and 6 hours. The phone records I subpoenaed through our shared account reveal texts deleted from her phone but still archived on the server, messages that would make our marriage counselor blush and our children need therapy. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Em thinks I'm reviewing contracts. Your hands are all I think about during these boring meetings. He made pancakes this morning and asked if I was happy. If only he knew how happy." M. Marcus. Me. The man who makes pancakes and asks about happiness while his wife counts hours until she can betray him again. I've documented 34 separate instances of adultery, each with timestamps, GPS coordinates, and supporting digital evidence. I've traced their pattern. Julia schedules client meetings in Minneapolis, drives to Dan's cabin instead, spends 4 to 6 hours there, then drives to Minneapolis to establish a digital trail before returning home. She's been using our joint American Express to pay for hotels she never sleeps in, meals she never eats, creating receipts that support her fiction. Dan's been equally methodical. His construction company, which I helped him get started with engineering consultation, always shows him working late on the same nights Julia visits. But his company's job site GPS tracking shows his truck parked at his cabin during these supposed overtime hours. They've built their affair like we used to build our friendship, on shared deception and careful planning. The marriage I thought we were building was never real. Just Julia complaining about my predictability while f***ing my best friend twice a week for 4 months. Dan giving speeches about my steadiness while planning to destroy it. They've been constructing this betrayal with the same precision I use for load-bearing calculations. But here's what they don't understand about structural engineering. Before you demolish a building, you have to understand exactly how it was constructed. You have to identify every support beam, every stress point, every dependency that keeps the whole thing standing. Only then can you bring it down completely. I've spent 8 weeks mapping the architecture of their deception, and now I understand its blueprint perfectly. Julia's career depends on her reputation for ethical consulting and family values, the personal brand she's cultivated through LinkedIn posts about work-life balance and company blog entries about maintaining integrity in client relationships. Dan's construction business thrives on personal relationships in our small town, on being the guy everyone trusts to show up on time and deliver what he promises. They've built their affair on the foundation of the very reputations that would crumble if anyone knew the truth. My phone buzzes with a text from Julia. "Client dinner running late. Don't wait up. Love you." The GPS tracker shows her SUV at Dan's cabin, where she's been for 2 hours, where she's telling Dan she loves him while texting me the same lie she's told 33 times before. I open my laptop and begin typing the first email that will demolish everything they've built. The subject line reads, "Documented timesheet irregularities. Julia Ellison Consulting." Some men break things when they're angry. I build cases. And this case is airtight. Julia's termination letter arrives on a Thursday morning, the same day of the week she used to visit Dan's cabin. I'm drinking coffee at our kitchen table, same routine, 6:15 a.m. sharp, when she opens the certified mail with shaking hands, her face going pale as she reads about documented misuse of company resources, fraudulent expense reporting, and conduct inconsistent with our corporate values. "They're firing me," she whispers, as if saying it quietly might make it less real. "They're actually firing me." I refill my coffee mug, taking my time with the cream and sugar. "What happened?" She looks up at me with something approaching panic. "Someone sent them documentation of my travel patterns, GPS records, hotel receipts, proof that I wasn't where I said I was during client trips." Her voice rises. "Who would do something like that?" The answer is sitting across from her, eating toast and pretending to read the morning news on his tablet. But she doesn't suspect me yet. In 14 years of marriage, Julia has never seen me as capable of strategic thinking beyond choosing which restaurant to try for date night. "Maybe it was a routine audit," I suggest. "Companies do that sometimes." "No." She's studying the letter again, looking for clues. "This is personal. Someone specifically tracked my movements, cross-referenced them with my expense reports, identified every discrepancy." She pauses. "This is the kind of detailed analysis you'd do for a structural engineering project." I meet her eyes over my coffee mug. Sounds like whoever did it was very thorough. The irony isn't lost on me. Julia always complained about my thoroughness. Now she's experiencing exactly how thorough I can be when I put my mind to something important. Her phone rings, Dan's ringtone, though she's changed his contact name to Work Emergency. She answers with the careful tone of someone trying to sound professional while her world collapses. "I can't talk long," she says, glancing at me. "Yes, it happened to me too. Someone sent everything to my company." Pause. "I don't know who. I don't know how they got access to—" Another pause, longer this time. "What do you mean your clients are calling?" I pretend to read about local election results while listening to Julia's half of the conversation that's beginning to destroy Dan's business. Because while Julia's corporate overlords were reviewing her fraudulent expense reports, I was busy sending very different documentation to Dan's clients throughout Glen Oak. Small towns run on reputation. Dan's construction company built its success on being reliable, trustworthy, the kind of man you could depend on to show up when he said he would and finish what he started. His clients, the Hendersons who hired him to remodel their kitchen, the Catholic Church that contracted him for their new fellowship hall, the school board that selected his bid for playground improvements, they all believed they were hiring a man of integrity. So I sent them the truth. Not the intimate details. I'm not crude, just the professional implications. Time-stamped evidence that Dan had been billing them for hours he spent at his cabin. GPS documentation showing his truck wasn't at job sites when his invoices claimed he was working late. The kind of systematic fraud that makes clients wonder what else he's been lying about. Some of them are questioning their contracts, Julia whispers into the phone. Everyone's asking questions? Longer pause. Your family found out? How? Another pause. Oh God, Dan. Your mom saw what? I sent Julia's sister the video footage. Not to be cruel, but because Linda had spent 14 years treating me like Julia's disappointing consolation prize. Every family gathering, every holiday dinner, every birthday party where Linda would make pointed comments about Julia settling for small-town life with a boring engineer when she could have done so much better. Linda shared the video with Julia's mother. Julia's mother shared it with her book club. Julia's book club shared it with their neighbors. And in a town of 47,000 people where everyone knows everyone, secrets become currency faster than gossip becomes fact. By the time Julia hangs up the phone, she's crying. Real tears, the kind she used to shed when we fought about money or parenting decisions back when our marriage had problems worth crying over. Someone is destroying our lives, she says. Systematically, professionally, like they planned this. She's not wrong. I have been planning this, with the same attention to detail I brought to every structural engineering project that kept bridges standing and buildings safe. The difference is that instead of preventing failure, I'm engineering it. Who would want to hurt you and Dan? I ask, my voice gentle with false concern. Julia stares at me across our kitchen table, and for the first time in 4 months, I see recognition in her eyes. Not love. We lost that somewhere between her first lie and her 34th betrayal. But recognition of the man she married, the man she underestimated, the man who's been sitting in this same chair every morning for 14 years, methodically planning his day while she planned his destruction. Marcus, she says slowly, what do you know about this? I finish my coffee and place the mug in the dishwasher, the same routine I've followed every morning of our marriage. I know that actions have consequences, Julia. I know that when you build something on a faulty foundation, it eventually collapses. I pause at the kitchen doorway. And I know that boring men notice everything. She's still sitting at the table when I leave for work, holding her termination letter like evidence of a crime she's finally beginning to understand. The demolition is ahead of schedule. 3 months after Julia's termination, the custody hearing takes place in a beige conference room that smells like disinfectant and broken promises. Julia sits across from me at a rectangular table, flanked by a legal aid attorney she can barely afford now that her consulting career is over. She's wearing the navy suit she bought for client presentations, but it hangs differently on her now, like clothes borrowed from someone who used to live a more confident life. Judge Patricia Steinberg reviews my documentation with the methodical attention I've learned to appreciate in people who understand the importance of details. 34 instances of documented abandonment. GPS evidence showing Julia's SUV at locations other than her claimed destinations during court-mandated parenting time. Financial records proving she used our children's college fund to pay for hotels that supported her fictitious work trips. Mr. Ellison, Judge Steinberg says, you've presented an exceptionally thorough case. My attorney, the best family law specialist in 3 counties, whose fees I can afford because I've been living below my means for 14 years while Julia spent our excess income on her affair, nods respectfully. Your Honor, my client has been the primary caregiver throughout this marriage. He maintained their home, attended every school event, provided stability while Mrs. Ellison pursued extracurricular activities. The euphemism makes Julia flinch. Extracurricular activities. As if my best friend twice a week for 4 months was equivalent to taking pottery classes or joining a book club. Julia's attorney objects to the characterization, but the evidence speaks for itself. School records showing I attended every parent-teacher conference while Julia missed 18 due to work commitments. Commitments that GPS data proves were actually visits to Dan's cabin. Medical records with my signature on permission forms because Julia was unavailable during Liam's broken arm and Emma's strep throat. Bank statements showing I paid for groceries, utilities, mortgage payments, and children's expenses, while Julia's income went toward maintaining her double life. Mrs. Ellison, Judge Steinberg says, do you dispute these attendance records? Julia's voice barely reaches across the table. I was working, building my career. I thought Marcus understood that someone had to earn enough money for us to get ahead. Getting ahead? I speak for the first time since we sat down, my voice carrying the quiet intensity that used to make her pause during our worst arguments. You mean getting ahead with Dan while I raised our children alone? Her attorney touches her arm, signaling her to stay quiet, but Julia can't help herself. You don't understand what it was like being married to someone so contained, so predictable. I felt like I was disappearing. So you made sure our children disappeared from your priorities instead. Judge Steinberg intervenes before this becomes a full confrontation, but the damage is done. Julia has just admitted on record that she prioritized her personal fulfillment over her parental responsibilities. Every family court judge in Illinois has heard this argument before, and they know how it ends. The decision takes 18 minutes, full custody to me, with supervised visitation for Julia every other weekend. She's required to maintain employment and attend family counseling before any modification to the arrangement can be considered. She's also responsible for finding alternative housing within 30 days, since her termination makes her unable to contribute to our mortgage payments. Julia stares at the custody order like she's reading a death certificate. In a way, she is. The life she thought she was building with Dan, the future she imagined where she'd eventually leave our boring marriage for something more exciting. All of it just died in a beige conference room that smells like disinfectant and justice. Marcus, she says, as we walk toward our cars in the courthouse parking lot. I know you're angry, but this is cruel. Liam and Emma need their mother. I stop beside my truck, the same vehicle I drove to Dan's cabin that first night when I confirmed what I'd suspected for months. They need a mother who shows up, Julia. They need a parent who puts them first. You're destroying me. No, I correct her. I'm protecting them from someone who already destroyed herself. She starts crying then. The kind of broken sobbing that might have moved me 8 months ago when I still believed we were fighting for something worth saving. Now it just sounds like the structural groan of a building finally admitting it can't support its own weight. The man I married wouldn't have done this, she whispers. I climb into my truck and roll down the window. The woman I married wouldn't have f***ed my best friend twice a week for 4 months while lying to our children about business trips. Julia's face crumples, but I'm already backing out of the parking space. In my rearview mirror, I watch her standing alone beside her SUV, the same vehicle I tracked to Dan's cabin 34 times, the same vehicle that carried her away from our marriage and toward this moment when she finally understands the cost of betrayal. That evening, I help Liam with his math homework while Emma practices piano in the living room. The house feels different now, not because Julia's moved her belongings to the spare bedroom while she looks for an apartment, but because the uncertainty is gone. The questions that had been eating at me for months finally have answers, and the answers have consequences, and the consequences have given me back my children and my peace of mind. "Dad," Liam says, looking up from his worksheet, "is Mom okay? She's been crying a lot." I set down his pencil and meet his 10-year-old eyes, which are still innocent enough to believe that mothers don't lie and fathers always know what to do when the world stops making sense. "Sometimes people make choices that hurt themselves and the people they love," I tell him. "When that happens, the people who weren't making those choices have to decide what comes next." "What comes next for us?" Emma stops playing piano and turns around on the bench, waiting for my answer. Both my children staring at me with the kind of trust Julia used to claim I didn't deserve. The kind of trust that makes a man worthy of the faith placed in him. "We keep being a family," I tell them. "Just a smaller one, but stronger. Definitely stronger." 9 months after the custody hearing, I'm sitting in the same kitchen where Julia used to complain about our boring life, reading Emma's report card while Liam builds a Lego bridge at the table beside me. Both kids are thriving in ways that surprise their teachers. Emma's grades have improved dramatically, and Liam hasn't had a behavioral incident since Julia moved out. Children are more perceptive than adults give them credit for. They knew something was wrong in our house long before I installed the GPS tracker. They felt the tension in our silence, the falseness in Julia's affection when she'd return from her business trips with guilt-motivated hugs and expensive presents we couldn't afford. Now our routines have the stability they were always meant to have. Breakfast at 7:15, school drop-off at 8:30, homework at 4, dinner at 6, bedtime stories that don't get interrupted by urgent work calls from lovers pretending to be colleagues. The predictability Julia found so suffocating has become the foundation that lets our children sleep peacefully. Julia lives in a 2-bedroom apartment across town, working retail at Target, while trying to rebuild a career she destroyed with her choices. She sees the kids every other Saturday afternoon at the library, supervised visits that ensure she can't poison them against me the way she tried during the first month after our divorce was finalized. Dan's construction business took 6 months to completely collapse. What started as client questions gradually became contract cancellations as word spread throughout Glen Oak about his systematic billing fraud. His reputation in our small town became so toxic that even his family barbershop stopped acknowledging him as a regular customer. Last I heard, he'd moved to Phoenix and was working for someone else's construction company, building other people's projects instead of running his own. Their affair, which once seemed so passionate and liberating, lasted exactly 3 weeks after I exposed it. Turns out that relationships built on betrayal don't have much structural integrity when subjected to real-world stress. Who could have predicted that? The modest colonial on Maple Street that Julia used to find so confining has become our sanctuary. Same mortgage, same efficient heating system, same sensible furniture. But now it represents what it was always meant to represent: stability, security, the kind of solid foundation that lets a family grow without constantly worrying about collapse. I've become something of a local legend in Glen Oak, though not in a way I ever expected. The quiet man who outmaneuvered his cheating wife so thoroughly that the story serves as a cautionary tale throughout our community. Mothers warn their daughters about taking good men for granted. Husbands joke about not crossing the engineer who notices everything. My reputation has actually improved. I'm seen as the wronged party who handled his betrayal with dignity and strategic precision, the devoted father who protected his children from an unstable mother, the man who proved that boring doesn't mean helpless. Emma brings me her report card, straight A's for the 3rd consecutive marking period. "Mrs. Patterson says I'm her most focused student," she announces proudly. "That's because you get it from your dad," Liam adds without looking up from his Lego bridge. "The focusing thing." They're right, of course. Focus is what allowed me to document Julia's betrayal so thoroughly. Focus is what helped me navigate the legal system and secure our future. Focus is what transformed me from the predictable husband Julia left behind into the formidable man who rewrote the entire story of our marriage. But here's what I've learned about revenge. It's not a single moment of satisfaction. It's not the look on Julia's face when she realized I'd been orchestrating her downfall, or the sound of her crying when the judge awarded me full custody. Revenge is the quiet satisfaction of watching the life you built remain standing, while the life your betrayer thought she was building crumbles completely. It's the knowledge that your children are safer, happier, more secure without the person who was supposed to love them most. It's the understanding that your methodical nature wasn't a flaw to be overcome, but a strength to be leveraged when everything you cared about was under attack. Most of all, it's the realization that you didn't just survive betrayal. You used it to become someone better than the person who tried to destroy you. Julia was right about one thing. I am predictable, predictably thorough, predictably strategic, predictably unwilling to let anyone harm my children or destroy what we've built together. She thought she knew who I was because she'd been married to me for 14 years. But she was wrong about the most important thing. She never understood that boring men don't miss when it matters. And this mattered more than anything. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.